Max Pacioretty, Frankie, this is the big story last night too. The Pacioretty, Tavares, and Nylander line reunited once again. They were outstanding. 3 goals, 2 assists, 5 points. But most specifically, Pacioretty had 2 and 1, 3 shots on goal, 3 hits, his 61st career 2-goal game. Like he was really, really strong. And I want to take you back to the summer. What was your initial reaction to the news coming out that the Leafs were sniffing around at Pacioretty?
Not surprised because they needed someone lower in the lineup who could score. And I think if you looked at some of the guys that were available, like, Pacioretty was a guy, JVR was a guy, and you kind of think, okay, with what their, messaging is, who's going to fit more of a depth role that can do a lot of what they're saying. And JVR is a good player, good offensive instincts, but we've seen the physicality from Pacioretty, and him kind of using his size to his advantage. The goals last night are a good example of that, where, he's working through sticks or working through checks, getting sticks on shots. And it's like, okay, it makes sense that they went with Pacioretty because of, the frame that he has, the still, a good foot speed, although it's not exactly what it used to be. But I think he's asserted himself really well, where he's kind of said, well, hey, if I'm not going to be scoring, I'm going to be physical, like he was in New Jersey. Like we all saw the hit on Jack Hughes. And so, having that kind of versatility has really made Pacioretty a valuable player for this group, because we know depth scoring is so important and something they desperately need. But being able to have that little chippiness goes a long way with this group as well.
Well, that's been the bigger story for me, Frankie, in this early season, is how physical Max Pacioretty has been. Like, I've long loved this player. A lot of people know that on this podcast. I've been a big Pacioretty
Yeah, you're
guy
a
dating back.
Montreal guy. That's why.
Well, no, I don't really care about that. But he is the former captain of the Montreal Canadiens. I love them more in Vegas, quite honestly, now. But I just think when you look at him, the way he has evolved his game, and I thought it was pretty simple that maybe he's had that conversation with Berube, Tree Living, like, hey, this is the way we need you to play. If you don't want to play this way, that's fine. But if you want to stick with this team, this is the way you're going to play. Because I can't remember a time in Max Pacioretty's career he was this physical. But I think it was much needed, a power forward type presence with this Maple Leafs team. And again, he's gelling with the big boys, which is good
Yeah.
news, because how often are we talking about like depth wingers with this organization, right?
For sure, for sure. Like there's a lot of, there's options, but it feels like as far as the depth wingers go, like no one's really separated themselves from the pack. And you can even like say Matthew Nyes has not separated himself, the way we thought he was going to after a good start this season. So, yeah, I think like with Pacioretty, it's funny. Like guys get older, and you want to stay in the league by any means necessary. And for a guy that's been through a lot in his career, whether it's the successful years or the injuries that have forced him to be out of the lineup and not available to play, you get a chance here and you say to yourself, I'm going to do everything I possibly can. And you can read between the lines, okay, what does this team need? Well, yeah, they got the elite talent for sure. He would know Toronto just as well as anyone else. Like, what does Toronto need, and what can I do? That really helps me fit in here. Well, hey, goal scoring is not going to be an issue for him. Like that's something that's always been part of his game. But the recognition that he needs to have some energy and some chippiness and make this team, harder to play against in the way that he can. That's good veteran recognition by him to kind of assert himself in that way. And I think there's probably some younger guys that would be well served to take a page out of his book and realize that. But you almost don't realize it until you get to that point where you're like, okay, this is it. Like, if I want to stick around, there's some things that I have to do here that might be different than what I've done in the past. And for me, Max Pacioretty has done that.
Yeah, he's definitely understood the assignment. And I said it early on in the season. I think he's better suited for the top 6 as opposed to the bottom 6 ever since they made that switch. It's been night and day, because if you recall, he was a health bomb early in the year, really trying to find his footing with this team, and comes up with a big effort against the Anaheim Ducks. And
Funny,
if he
Nick? Like, if you
yeah.
go back to camp, remember, like, hey, just, he had the one good preseason game. I think it was right away. And then it was quiet for a bit. And then it was like, yeah, we got a guy like that has to ramp up, right? Like, he comes into camp on a PTO, and then, the contract's going to be there pretty much regardless of how he plays. You just got to stay healthy. And I remember Tree Living saying it, like, that's the kind of guy you just got to give a little runway to, because we know what he's all about. And sure enough, like, he's gotten the runway. He's been hurt. He's come back, and he's come back from injury, like, looking a little refreshed too. It feels like he took that time to not only, get back to normal health wise, but also just, it feels like there's a little, I don't know, there's a little extra something after he's come back from an injury, which is not an easy thing to do, because the game's moving faster. The league moves on without you, and you're trying to play catch up. So to not only play catch up, but come back with a little extra half gear, that speaks volumes to his commitment and dedication.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Roseau. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.